Good afternoon. I welcome you to my channel, You War Now. I will tell you in an accessible and simple language about the events in Ukraine. My name is Bogdan, and here we go. Let's start with the losses of the enemy. For the entire time, the enemy lost about 461,000 soldiers, 7,241 tanks, and more than 11,000 artillery systems. In addition to this, the Ukrainian military added about 880 soldiers, 1 tank, and 43 artillery systems to this figure. Ukrainian servicemen made results outside Ukraine as well. Unknown good drones hit the Smolensk, Kursk, Belgorod, and Voronezh regions. All the strikes hit oil depots. This shows that Ukraine wants to create a shortage of fuel for the Russian army so that food would reach the hostilities with a delay. In the Smolensk region, a fire at an oil depot near Talashkini can be seen from the city of Kisilivka. Another oil depot in the city of Yartsevo is on fire in the same region. Also, in the Lipetsk region, a drone fell in an industrial zone. These birds were not shot down either. The Ministry of Defense of Russia announces the shooting down of 8 drones over the Belgorod, Kursk, Voronezh, and Smolensk regions. This day did not pass without loud statements. It is expected that a new aid package to Ukraine, after Congress approves funding, will amount to approximately $1 billion. And Biden administration officials have informed legislators that it will likely include ATACMS large-caliber munitions for the first time. Today, President Zelensky had a phone conversation with President Biden, discussing the aid package. Moreover, the Senate passed an additional $95 billion national security bill, including military aid to Ukraine, Israel, and Taiwan, by a vote of 79-18. Biden commented after the U.S. Senate approved aid to Ukraine. "I will sign this bill and speak to the American people as soon as it reaches my desk tomorrow, so that we can begin shipping weapons and equipment to Ukraine this week." For more global news, the U.S. is developing sanctions against Chinese banks to end their support for the Russian military-industrial complex. This will become an escalation option in relations with Beijing. The U.S. authorities hope to force China to reduce exports of military goods to Russia. The U.S. is preparing sanctions against Chinese banks to block their financial support for the Russian military complex. This is a reaction to China's important role in supplying Moscow with various components for military production. Let's go back to Europe. Britain has pledged 500 million and a record shipment of military equipment, including vehicles, ammunition, to Ukraine. This aid was announced yesterday in a press release, and today, April 23rd, it will be officially announced by the Prime Minister of Great Britain, Rishi Sunak. It is worth noting that this is the largest funding and equipment in history for Ukraine from Great Britain. These measures are put as a response to the continued Russian invasion, which poses a threat to the stability of all of Europe. Moving to the front line, let's start with the Bakhmut sector, specifically Chasiv Yar. Chasiv Yar is being held, but the enemy continues to probe towards the settlement. Recently, the president of Ukraine visited the command post of the 41st Separate Mechanized Brigade. This brigade and the units attached to it managed to stabilize the front line in the vicinity of Chasiv Yar. Additionally, the enemy does not cease attempts to seize the entire territory of Avdiivka village. If we open a more detailed map and look at the administrative territorial boundaries of the settlement, we can see that only a part of the village is in the red zone. There, our soldiers are making great efforts to prevent the enemy from advancing and consolidating. And this is very important, friends, because after Avdiivka, the enemy will have more opportunities for further advancement towards Chasiv Yar to attack the city from the south. In addition to attempting to bypass from the direction of Avdiivka, the aggressors are trying to do so from the direction of Bogdanivka towards Kalinivka. There is an accumulation of infantry in the forest north of the private sector on the eastern outskirts of Chasiv Yar for further advancement. In the area of Avdiivka, it is worth paying attention to the settlements of Novomykhailivka, Ocheratin, and Novomykhailivka. Recently, the enemy has become more active in these directions and has made some advances. In Novomykhailivka, they encountered resistance along the road. Videos show our soldiers launching fire strikes against the enemy attempting to establish themselves. It is also worth mentioning separately that the enemy attempted to storm the village of Semenivka, but failed. According to soldiers of the 68th Brigade, the village remains under the control of defense forces, and any claims of its loss do not correspond to reality. Fighting continues in Berdyshev from the direction of Orlivka, in the area of Umansky and Pervomaisky. The situation remains challenging as the enemy continues to deploy vehicles and a significant amount of infantry into battle. The enemy continues to attack from the southeast outskirts of Krasnogorivka. We can see a private sector on the southern outskirts of Krasnogorivka, which is in the gray zone. Here, the enemy constantly attacks, attempts to concentrate forces, and deploys infantry on vehicles, trying to establish themselves in buildings and other locations. The enemy has also had successes between Avdiivka and Georgiivka. Currently, this can be seen on the map. Attempts to attack in that area continue, forcing defense forces to retreat. The situation in Novomykhailivka is indeed serious. On the map, the advancement of Russian forces is visible. Russian troops conduct periodic attacks on the southern outskirts and actively shell Ukrainian defense positions with artillery. This complicates the defense efforts and poses serious threats to the civilian population.